Hey there, welcome to my channel. My name is Linda. I have some fun crafts for you today. I have a few sweet friends who will be joining me today. I'll explain those details a little bit later. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started. For today's video, we'll be working on some Rustic Farmhouse Christmas tree decor. If you'll remember right back in July, we did a whole video of nothing but Christmas trees. So let's do it again and start with project number 1. For this project, I'm using this vintage spindle I found at a thrift show. It's already got the holes in there for us, but I'll drill a few more. But this is great because the project is like ready for us. It'll be a miniature type tree. It won't take too much time. And I found this spool at like Habitat for Humanity. It had like, wire on it, and I got charged like 25 cents. So that's awesome. And there was like so little wire that just gave it to my husband. And now I've got something to decor with for our base. And for greenery, I picked up this swag from Hobby Lobby. I know the price, but I got it for half that, so $25. And there is a ton of it on there. We use about half for this project. I've got a machine quilt that I'm going to be cutting up, and a couple of these wonky stars I got from craftingwithkimber.com. I'll have a link down below. They're a thinner, cut out of thinner wood, so I'm going to glue them together. Now I want to cover the spool, so I'm just taking some copy paper and rubbing it along the edges to get my shape. And here's what I cut out, of course, and we're going to cover it inside out, around the middle, everything. So here's my pieces cut so far. I've got the top with the circle cut out. The bottom's going to cover completely, and then I've already got the middle cut out. It's a little long. We'll adjust that later, but that will, of course, will wrap around the center. And then for the inside top and bottom, I've got one side cut out. Again, it looks like the piece on the top, but we're using that, and have the circle cut out. But we have to make one small adjustment. But when we glue it all on, you probably saw it right there. When we glue it all on, it will look nice. So let me go ahead and cut the center out here. Yes, this machine quilt, got it from Wayfair, I believe. It was like $37. I've been cutting on it for a couple of years. Love the color, so it's working perfectly. So the center's cut out, back to our thought, and then you just make one slit down the back. Nobody will notice it. We're going to piece it together nice. And I tried to cut it in a spot that when it glues back together, you don't see it. Okay, here I am adjusting the center, and I'm going to go ahead and just sew around everything. You don't have to if you're not a sewer, but I thought that'd give it a little country charm. And then here I am with the wonky star. I've got some wood glue on it. I'm going to put it together, and then I'm going to clamp it. And we're going to set that aside, and then, of course, go back to our spool as our base. And I'm cleaning it. I've cleaned it off. There is some rust on it, of course, which is why I got it in the first place. And I'm sanding it to help stain it. Now, I looked online like staining metal, and there are stains you can get for metal. Of course, I don't have any of that. And as you can see by my can to the left, I've got some stain, and it hasn't been used in a few years. It's a little well-loved, the can rusty and everything, but it's a wood stain, but just happen to have it, and it matches perfectly with like the spindle we're using. But I'm just going to go ahead and by sanding it, it's going to help give it some scratches. And I'm using just a leftover piece of that, quilt that I've been cutting up for this project and rubbing it on there. And I'm just concerned just around the edges, anything that's just going to show. I'm not doing the whole thing because most of it's covered up with fabric, of course. Once it's on there, I let it set for like 10 minutes, and then I'm just taking a little wet wipe and wiping off any excess. And as you can see, hardly anything is coming off, so it stuck beautifully. Had I used a quilt or fabric that had a little more whites in it, I would have left it, but I didn't. So now what I want to do, I'm using this E6000 quick hold because they were out of the store, out of my Beacon quick grip that I love. So I'm like, I'm going to try this E6000 quick hold. It works great, but it's a bit smelly. I had to open a window just to let you know. But what I want to do is I've got just some little wood circles here. I want to fill the centers of this spool so that it sits evenly and level on the bottom. And then on the top, it gives me a little more glue surface for that spindle to go through. So just some little wood circles in my stash, filling that in. Yes, this E6000 gripped quickly just like the Beacon, and holds great, but like I said, a bit smelly, had to open the window. All right, so here's my pieces all sewn, giving us a little bit more of a quilted look. But like I said, if you're not a sewer and you get like a machine quilted thing on sale, it's already got sewing in it, so you really don't need to bother with it. Also, before I get that glued on, I want to fill in the space between that inner circle and that outer circle so it lays level right on both sides. So I've just used some cardboard there, and then I've glued my one piece to the bottom, covering the whole bottom. I'm going to go ahead and glue my center piece, of course, to the center. I've got my seam in the back, so I want to make sure when I put my middle pieces in that I match the seams of those to the seam of that center in the back and just butt it up nice and close together so you just don't even notice that seam we had to cut in there. Here I'm making sure I put the last one that goes underneath seam to the back, matching it nice. And again, it'll be to the back. You're not going to see that. The tree's going to be the beauty part of it, so no one's even going to see this part. Put my top on, and then here it is all ready to go. And then I'm cutting my greenery up. Like I said, I used about half of this swag so I can make another one. And what I loved about this greenery is you can see how kind of flexible it is and rubbery, but it doesn't look rubbery. It looks realistic. And I'm going to cut like 3 different sizes. They're all one size, but I'm going to cut like small, medium, and large sizes. And then you can go in and trim more if you need to. And here I have drilled just a few more holes because I was originally going to have it look really sparse, and I decided no, I want it to look really full. Every time I go to do these, I want them to look sparse, and then I don't like how sparse it looks, so I go in for making it look full. So here I am, I've got all my pieces, and I'm using my Beacon Fabri-Tac glue, and I'm just gluing them in. I actually started with the longer pieces kind of in the middle because they do drape down so far, and then I kind of put the short and the medium pieces at the top and at the bottom of the spindle. And you can see how really full it is. I think it would have looked greater, more sparse, but because I do want a little bit of the spindle to be seen, but in the end, that's okay. All right, getting just a few more of these, skipping ahead a little bit at a time, but you get the gist. They did fit nice and tightly in the holes, but I did want to make sure, of course, they were cemented in with my Beacon Fabri-Tac glue. Of course, you can use hot glue. And now I want to just kind of fill the top, and I'm not just going to wrap it around the top. I'm actually going to like intertwine it with some of those top pieces so it doesn't just look like a piece of greenery wrapped at the top. By kind of intertwining it, I thought it maybe looked a little more natural. I don't know if you really needed to do that, but to me, I just thought, you know, it looked, like I said, a little more natural instead of just winding it. All right, set that aside. I'm taking some Distress Oxide Ink Vintage Photo, Michael's clickable stamps. We all know these stamps. I'll have the link for clickable stamps in the description box and some oxide ink. And I'm going to take some of the oxide ink and just distress up my little fabric tag that I made here. It's 2 pieces of muslin with a piece of batting in between, and I sewed around it. And then I'm stamping "Oh Christmas Tree" onto the tag. Now I've got a piece of just scrap wood here. I'm going to actually glue it on the back of the tag. You'll see why here in just a minute, using my Beacon Fabri-Tac and gluing it right down the center of the back, and hello Boston. And then I'm adding some red and cream twine and a little bow at the top with a little rusty safety pin just to give it a little something. Perfect, and we'll set that aside. My stars are now ready to go. And since it's such a light colored wood, I'm going to use some of my Waverly Antique Wax mixed with water. I've got it like in a secondary jar, so I always have some mixed with water. And I just kind of stained front and back around the edges, and then I'm just taking some paint here, chalk paint, kind of 2 colors, a white and a cream mixed together, and painting my star front and back, and then I'm going to distress it up a little bit. And the reason I stain ahead of time, in case you don't know, when it's light colored wood, if you stain and then paint, as you see here, when you distress, it'll allow just a little bit of that darkness to come through from underneath. Now, let's talk LED lights. Any LED lights will work. I happen to find this set of lights in one of those home decor gumball machines at a thrift store. And this particular battery pack fit perfectly in the hole that's already in the spindle. I'm sorry, I don't know where you get these kind of shaped battery packs, but there it is. But the color, not so good. So I'm going to paint it a little bit of dark brown because I'm actually going to attach the star to this, and a little bit of it will be seen underneath. And plus on the back side, I just want it to look nice anyway. All right, let's set that aside. I'm going to add a little decor right on the inside, the bottom inside of our little spool here. Not too much because, you know, when you look at it, you're going to see tree, but I want to know something's there. So a pine cone, some rusty bells, a couple of wood slices in here. I ripped a rectangle piece of fabric and I just tied like a little knot in the center. That was it. And I'm going to glue it right down in this area right here. Easiest way to make a bow. You don't got to worry about loops or nothing. Get that glued right down there. Now we got a little something something at the bottom there. Like I said, not seen much, but I know it's there. Now let's go back to our little tag that has the wood slice on it. I'm going to set it right, hello Bella, I'm going to set it right on the end of our spool there. You can see how it looks turned around. It's going to hold perfectly well. And then we're going to get our spindle using that E6000 again, window open, and get that glued down right to the center. Now you know why I put those wood slices there. And I let that set for a good 10 minutes. It says it holds in about 10 minutes. And here we are with our tree. Let's get our lights. Look at that. Bum, bada, bum, right in the top. Nice. And I'm going to wind it around in here. I actually could have used maybe another set of lights, but because there's no lights around the back, it's a short strand, but I'm just going to wind it around in the front a little bit. Someone else can add more lights in the back if they want and hide the pack underneath the tree. And then here I am just gluing a little bit of glue. I'm gluing a little bit of glue, adding a little bit of glue to the back of the star. And I'm going to attach it right to that light pack there. It's going to be perfect. And then, you know, when you need to change batteries, you'll just lift up the battery pack and the wood star out of it. No problems there. That makes this project complete. We'll take a look at the final results at the end of the video. For today's video, I told you I'd tell you about my sweet friends. I'll be joining in with all these beautiful ladies, and we are going to bring you tons of DIY Christmas inspiration. I will have a playlist linked below in my description box as well as in my comments so that you can go to, what do I always say, one convenient location to find all of these videos, and you will just have lots of minutes and time to check out all these fun crafts to get your Christmas to-do list on. With that said, let's move right on into project number 2. For this project, most come from Dollar Tree, including this star on a dowel, this 12-inch chunky slat, and these things, I think they're meant to be stackable for books because they all have different sayings on it. I picked the white ones. I thought it'd be easier to do. And then just a big piece of thick chunky wood for my supply. I'm going to probably cut it about 12 inches long. Now I want to take the dowel off of this. You could just pull it out and then fill it with wood glue, but I'm just going to kind of cut it off, and then I'm going to actually do 2. I'll do one more off camera because I'll be using one for our next project as well. And I'm just taking a craft knife, just kind of sliding it on both sides, and then I'll wiggle it back and forth till it breaks off, and then I'll just sand that off. So this book stack is like 7 3/4 inch long. We want to make a tree shape, right? We got a tree theme going on. So 7 3/4 inches. So then the next one, I'm going to do like 5 3/4 inches. And then the last one, I'm going to do 3 3/4 inches, and I'll just cut them outside, and then I'm going to sand them all off and distress them. So here's what they look like. I did leave a little white around the corners, or the edges, just to give it a little something because it's just flat wood. Here's my star all sanded off, and then I've got my wood piece already screwed in. I had my hubby do it to that 12-inch chunky slat. Okay, I'm using my Waverly Antique Wax mixed with water. I'm going to stain everything up, but see how it kind of stains around the edges and you see that little bit of white show? That'll just at least give our wood some personality. I was going to just use like salvage wood like I'm going to do in my next project, but I wanted to try and use most things from Dollar Tree. All right, so just get that. I'm not going to paint these particular things. These 3 pieces that make our tree shape and the base, I'm going to leave just stained and distress those up. But the star, I'm going to do it like we did our first project. I'll stain it up and paint it up. And of course, here's what it looks like all distressed up. I just distressed around the edges. I do want a little bit of stain to show, but we're going to cover that up. Here I'm coming in with the star. Now, when I go to attach all these, I glue them and then I nail them in. But the star, because it had such a little place to adhere to, I was going to just leave it white and distressed like this, but I had to put in like 3 nails on it and then it looked tacky. So I end up adding another one of Kim's wonky stars like we used in the first project, little smaller size. But I think it actually looks cute and intentional. So here is some scrapbook paper. We're going to cover the front of our wood pieces. I'm going to sew around the edges of them, do like a little double sewing. If you're not a sewer, then you could do like a fine Sharpie marker and do some little dash lines would be cute. But I sew on these just like I'm sewing on fabric. There's no special needle. There's no special thread. Nothing. It's just regular sewing. Okay, so here I'm of course just showing a little bit of that for you, and I was just going to go around once, but then I decided to go around twice, and you probably didn't notice it, but right behind the sewing machine I've got an ample supply of little gingerbread dolls. I'm making a little view for you in the back just because you wanted to know that. Here's what they look like, of course, and now I'm coming in with my scissor blades. I'm just distressing around the edges, scraping along the edges, so to speak. Here's what that would look like when it's all done. You don't have to do this. As I always say, I just like to do this on my scrapbook paper because it gives it a rustic look. Now, I want to add a quote to my scrapbook paper, so I chose to cut it out in white vinyl. I thought white would just be very like in your face, and that was kind of be the first thing you see. I will have a free printable for you for this. There'll be a link to my blog in the description box. It will be a PDF format, so you could use like carbon paper and do, you know, like a trace copy method, or you can just take like scrapbook paper into your printer and then just print out the PDF on the scrapbook paper and then cut your paper to fit your project. I did that for years before I had an electronic cutting machine. I will also have the fonts listed down below because it's not any type of, you know, awesome design or anything like that. So those of you with electronic cutting machine, if you want the exact same font, it'll be quicker for you to just type it in and cut it out. So of course, here I am peeling off the transfer sheet of all my pieces to get my vinyl on there. And now I am placing my wood blocks on my back piece, that back wood slat from Dollar Tree. I'm placing them a little bit wonky. I've already got glue on the back. Here I am adding a little bit of glue for the star. See how I talked earlier that there was just very little glue, so I ended up using 3 nails. So originally I was just going to have 1 nail in the star and just have it be, you know, white like that. But since I put 3 nails, you'll see how it looks adding the other star. And in the end, that creative decision I actually liked a lot better. I'm pre-drilling some holes here. I usually will do that because I'm always afraid with this kind of cheap, you know, Dollar Tree wood and stuff, it might like crack if I just go to, you know, split, you know, if I just go to hammer nails in. But I'm actually glad I drilled some pilot holes. This wood was completely not cheap. It was hard to drill those, hammer those nails in. I mean, I couldn't believe, I must have been out there half an hour, whack, 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 whack. I could not get those nails in for nothing. But in the end, I got them there. I got them there. All right, I'll do the rest off camera here. You can see it's already done. I did 3 nails for each one. What I'm doing on the back of my scrapbook paper here is I was just going to glue the scrapbook paper to the front of the wood, right? No problem. But it was just kind of flat. So I took some cardboard and I cut it to fit the back a little bit smaller than the paper so that it would kind of pop the quote up off of the wood. And I think that looks a lot better. I just think it helps stand out a little bit more. And here you can see the nails, and I've got my other, you know, wonky star, craftingwithkimber.com, again, link down below. I'm going to glue. It almost just fits perfectly right in the center and just covers those nails. And like I said, I actually kind of like a little bit better in the end. Now I'm taking some black paint mixed with water, a fan brush, and I'm just tapping the fan brush, adding some splatters. You all know it was going to happen. You all have been with me a while. I'm going to add splatters. Next project has splatters too. I think it just gives it a little bit more personality and allows things to pop up a little more. And now, last but not least, I want to add just a little bit of decoration down at the bottom. The greenery I'm using here is from Walmart. I believe it was like 98 cents for these kind of glittery picks with pine cones on them. And then I've just got some muslin here. I ripped it into about a 2-inch strip and tied a little bow. And then I've got some red and white twine here. I glue it in the center of that bow first, and then later you'll see me move it. Then I've got some of these kind of flocked looking bells from Walmart. It's a big ornament set. They're like $1.98. So the bells will go a little bit far, but I loved how white they were and flocked. I thought it, there I'm removing the bow. I thought it kind of added in and matched the vinyl as well as the white star on top. I thought it tied it all together. I'm moving the bow just a little bit to the side underneath those bells there. Just putting 2 on here. And then I'll wrinkle and crinkle the last little bit of fabric tail on this other side. And I also glue down the tails of the red and white twine. This red and white twine's kind of glittery. It's Martha Stewart twine. I picked it up at, where did I pick it up? Marshall's or something like that. I can't remember. Anyway, Martha Stewart red and white twine. And then for end it all, I'm adding 3 little beaded berries here at the bottom. I get these in a pick from Hobby Lobby. And off camera, I will glitter dust this right up. That makes this project complete. We'll take a look at the final results at the end of the video. Let's move on to our last project, number 3. Psst, this one's my favorite. So I had some wood picked out for this project, right? And I was going to cut it up, and I went out and I'm like, there was like a little bucket with some scraps thrown in it. And I'm like, what are these pieces of wood? And they were like already the right size. I didn't have to cut nothing. It was perfect. I think it's like 12, 8, and 5 inches, something like that. And in this piece of scrap wood that has this cool metal element on it that I'm going to use for the bottom. And then I had my husband just screw a tiny wood block underneath that, just like we did in the previous project, but it's really small because I needed to add some weight, because I'm going to actually put this into this vintage aluminum bucket with a lid. I found this at a thrift store for like $7. I think it's going to be cool as our quote unquote tree skirt, but I'm just going to, I had this cut. He screwed to it so it can just fit right inside. And I'll add some like rocks and stuff in the bottom to kind of weight it down a little bit more, but that's kind of what it's going to be. So on this, again, I cut out some vinyl, but as you can see, I pulled off the letters because I'm going to use my vinyl as a stencil. Again, free printable, link to my blog in the description box, right? If I'd have done 4 pieces of wood, kind of the hill and the tree should have been split up, because, 4 pieces of wood, but I only wanted 3 pieces of wood, so I put those 2 together, but whatever, it's a creative decision for my design concept, right? So I peeled off all the parts that I wanted to actually stencil in, and I leave the outer area of vinyl and any insides of letters. I'm going to use Debbie's Design Diary DIY little black dress paint with the stencil brush, and I'm just going to stencil on this onto the wood. Right? Just kind of scooching ahead for you. I love how this turns out. I think it's great. Like I said, it's my favorite. I'm actually planning to do quite a few of these, what do I want to say, designs using kind of vintage pieces for the tree base this year. I just think it's fun. Like I've got some old metal teapots and stuff like that. I just think are going to be so fun and unique for like tree skirt, I guess I should say. Anyway, just finishing this up. I do 2 coats because I think it looks a little better. Now this 2 and 5, it's something I cut out last year with my laser cutter, so I had them left over. And again, this star, like we did in our last project, or was that the first project? I forget where we're at, where I, star from Dollar Tree with the dowel on it, and I cut the dowel off and smoothed it up. I'm staining it, okay, just like we did earlier, and then painting it up, and then I will distress them. We've already seen this process. We know what to do, but I put it in there a little bit for you. All right? So, if you don't have a laser machine to cut out, a 2 and a 5, Hobby Lobby or any of those craft stores, wood numbers everywhere, even Dollar Tree. And you don't even need a 2 and a 5. It's just decoration. And now, of course, I'm just distressing up the star and the 2 and a 5 just a tiny bit because these are kind of thin. I don't want to break them. All right. And now I am doing the piece de resistance, and I'm peeling off the vinyl to leave this nice, crisp word on each and every one of our salvage wood and, Bella's hind end there to the left. This one I'm peeling rather slow because I did sand all these, scraps that were already cut for us ahead of time. But this one I wanted to leave a little bit of paint on there just for rusticness. And so when you do that and then you distress on it, a lot of times you pull up, your vinyl or whatever, and then it pulls up a lot of the paint that you just loaded on there because it already has paint underneath it. Did that make any sense? Anywho, we'll pull up the last one. It looks great. And then let's move forward. So I have 2 pieces of fabric here and a piece of batting, all 12 by 12. I did 2 pieces kind of coordinating fabric. I want to do like a tree skirt now. We have our tree base. Well, I'm calling everything a tree skirt, aren't I? We have our tree base and a tree skirt. But we can't leave our tree skirt whole because our pole has to go down through the middle. So we're going to have to make a slit in it. So here I am. I'm just making a slit about halfway down our fabric. Okay, if you're a gluer, you can just glue it all together. You know me, I'm going to go and I'm going to sew around all the edges of this because I want it to look a little bit quilted too. Now you could, of course, cut up a already done quilt like we did in the first project and you don't have to sew anything, but you're definitely going to want to make a slit down it because it's easier to, wrap your skirt around our trunk, our tree trunk, so to speak, right? Set that aside for a minute. Now I'm taking my clickable stamps onto, again, 2 pieces of muslin and a piece of batting into a little tag shape. I sewed around and stamping Christmas dreams. And now I'm coming in with some wood glue on the back of my salvage wood pieces. And did I ever really explain that right? That middle one was already painted. So when I sanded everything down, I painted it to leave some paint already on there. And then I'm just putting them into wonky position that I want, and I will clamp them for a little while. And then I'll come back and I will nail some nails into it as well. I want the nails to be seen on this one because I want it to look all, salvaged and rustic, right? And so I decided I also wanted to add a little bit of hardware. So I have the little rusty old hinge I got from Habitat for Humanity, or Restore as people call it. And I'm just marking where I'm going to put a couple of screws. I don't put screws in every hole because I want the sign to look like it's been up for years at this tree farm. So I just pre-drill some holes for that. And then, of course, I'm pre-drilling some holes on the rest of my wood for some nails. And, of course, the star. I love on the star at the top, it's got that, you'll see it here in a little bit, that back piece of wood has that little metal coming up. So I placed all my wood pieces in my star down low enough so it almost looked like the top of a heart at the top of a star. So you'll see, like I said, you'll see that in a minute. So I'm screwing in my little rusty screws. They're actually rusty and painted. I went through my husband's little tub of screws and tried to find some rusty stuff, screwing those in to screw the hinge on. And then I've got the wood pieces nailed into that backboard, and now I'm gluing in the 25. See, 25 is optional. Of course, it stands for 25th of December, Christmas. It's just a little bit of decoration. And now I've got this like double-sided tape here. It's actually removable. You get it from Dollar Tree, but it'll hold really well. I want that on the bottom here because I didn't want to just glue it in permanently in case whoever gets this, they can pull it out if they want. So, I put it on the bottom and then peeled off the other side of the little plastic piece. And before I put it in, I'm splattering with some black paint to give it a little bit more rusticness. And now I will add that into the bottom of our pail here. The pail is really lightweight and wonky, which is why here in a minute, as soon as I get it pressed down, it really, really does hold very, very well. But I want to add some weight. So I've got a couple of sandwich bags here filled with some rock, and I'm just putting them in over that wood base to weigh down the bucket. Okay, and then I want to cover that up. So I'm just going to add some fluff right down around it. So if anyone, peeks in there or pulls up our little tree skirt, so to speak, it looks nice. So here's my tree skirt. I'm wrapping it around and I'm going to poke it right down in. I'm not going to glue this down or anything. All right. And I'm going to come around to the backside. It's going to look more like a triangular bandana. Okay, is how I'm going to make it look. So I'm folding that top more into a triangular end there, and I'm going to kind of glue that together. All right, and then I'm going to glue it to the piece down below. So I have like a triangle tree skirt when I'm done. But then I want to make this look intentional. So I'm going to add a little button here with some twine so it doesn't look like we just kind of glued some fabric together. It all looks intentional, right? And then I will turn this tree skirt a little bit so that the button is kind of seen to the side a little bit, just for that decoration. Get that button on there, kind of tie it off in the back. Cut off the excess using actual twine here. Boom, ready to go. Now I want to do the lid. Nobody yell at me. I'm using my crocodile to put a little hole in it on the side, not the top of the lid. And I want to add the lid to the handle, but I don't want it to slide down. So I'm going to actually feed some wire up through this little side piece here. I'm going to use a little flathead screwdriver and just pull it out just a touch to feed in some 20 gauge wire here. Pulling it through with some pliers and add it to the tiny little hole on the lid. My husband's like, don't put a hole in it, but I had to have a way to do it. And I'm going to make the wires so that you just see that tiny little bit coming out just like that at the top through that hole. I don't want it real bulky or coming out the lid or anything. So I'm using some pliers to kind of twist it on the inside nice and tight. And then I'll cut off the excess. And then I'll use some round nose needle pliers to kind of, twist it inward. And that way when it's pulled down, it looks all nice like I showed you earlier. You can see my little tree skirt, the little button coming to the side, right? Cute. Adding some greenery here. This I got at Walmart. Would you believe this was also 98 cents? Yes, I got a ton of them. I love me some snowy greenery. But I'm going to go ahead. These are some like little chopsticks. And I use some floral tape to put on, I cut the greenery up so that I can just put this down in. See, chopstick, floral tape. This is some more picks, rusty bells. Again, chopsticks with floral tape. So I can just tuck it right down in that space between the tree skirt and our pole. Right, that was some Dollar Tree greenery. Again, some more of that Martha Stewart twine with our little tag we stamped on, a rusty star, and a safety pin. I'm just going to safety pin it right up against in that space next to the bell. But first I got to take some ink and I got to, dirty it all up a little bit, right? Perfect. That looks much better. Goes in with the rustic of the wood and everything. Again, 2 pieces of muslin batting sewed together. You could glue it together if you're a gluer. Here I've got my whole ensemble, bow, star, safety pin. I'm going to pin that right into position. I do add a little glitter dust at the end. That link will be down below as well. And that makes this project complete. So I hope you enjoyed all of these Christmas tree projects today. I'll have a link down below in my description box to the first Christmas tree video that I did back in July. And then, of course, I asked you all if you wanted to see another one that was, nothing but, kind of Christmas tree themed. So here it is. And I might be able to get one more out for you. I'm not sure. Depends how my ideas flow. Please leave me a comment down below and let me know which project was your favorite. Please give this video a thumbs up because it really does help my channel to grow. And if you walked in here for the first time, you're just checking things out, you're digging what you saw, make sure before you click off, you hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss out on another video from me. And might I add, it's totally free to push that button. Also, if you enjoyed today's video, there's lots more Christmas crafts that you can get your eyes watching. Remember, this video is a part of a YouTube Christmas collaboration. I will have the link down below in my description box as well as pinned to my comments, taking you again one convenient location where you can watch tons of DIY Christmas inspiration to your heart's content. You'll be glad you did. Thank you, all you ladies, for including me in on this collaboration. I had a lot of fun. I love doing collaborations. Before I go, I'm going to leave you with one final thought. When we walk this life with God, we want His love, His mercy, His grace. We want His protection. We want to feel His nearness in every aspect of our lives, except when we don't. Let me explain. We trust and ask God for help, and then we wait. And then the wait starts feeling a little longer than we want, so we decide to take the initiative to step out of His reach, away from His nearness, and we try to make things happen on our own. You see, it's a give and tug kind of relationship with God. We fully rely on Him for everything, except when it doesn't happen fast enough for us. We don't feel like waiting any longer, so we muster up some bravery and we take a small half step forward. Oh, but not too far. Just enough to peek up ahead, still trying to decide how long we want to wait for God's help. We look back to see His face. We can't decipher his reaction and nothing is happening, so we take a few more steps. Each time we move forward, it feels like things are beginning to develop. Things are zigging, we are zagging, we don't know what's ahead on our walk, but we know something is being done because we're not just sitting and wait. Every now and then, though, we get nervous and we look back again at God. Yep, he's still there, watching, letting us take these steps, and we do notice that his distance is getting farther from us. Here's the thing, though. The distance may be increasing, but God never lets go of the rope that is tethered to our heart. He lets us get a taste of what it may be like without him so that we realize things are only possible with him. God will linger back just enough to allow us to feel our independence. He knows that some of us need only a quick stroll, while others need to stay out until the streetlights come on. Sometimes on our walk, we may get a little frightened of shifting shadows, or maybe a huge snake will slither out across our path, but God will never let us get hurt. All we have to do is simply call his name, and the distance between us and him will no longer be valid. He will be beside us faster than we can blink. He will grab our hand, instantly bring light to the shadows, and with his mighty kick, the snake will fly to the curb. He will always make us feel safe, and our steps will be firm because we delight in him. He calls us by name, and he will always be faithful to protect his children. Though we may stumble trying to walk ahead, we will not fall, because God will uphold us with his right hand. When we move forward, God is always there behind us, watching us, because we are still under his protection. We are never and will never be alone. His love, his mercy, his grace will always follow behind us and beside us all the days of our lives. I thank you for sharing your time with me, and I'll talk with you again soon. Bye.